Okay, so good morning to everyone. Welcome to this webinar about addressing psychological crisis and mental health support in higher education. My name is Izaskun Andueza, and I'm the coordinator of a team in Public University of Navarra that is participating in an Erasmus Plus project called Embrace Higher Education. I'm one of the three team members, together with Rubén Las Heras and Marcela Bejarano Riveros from the Public University of Navarra. We come from the Department of Sociology and Social Work, and we have organized this webinar that aims to discuss mental health and especially depression in the context of higher education. As you can see in the program, it will focus on the current care needs of the university students, and will give some examples of actions to address mental health at university settings. It's a part of the dissemination event, and we count with speakers from Spain, United Kingdom, Colombia, Greece, Lithuania, and Germany. Thanks to all of you. And before I pass it over Begoña, I want to point out 5 issues in a couple of minutes. First of all, it's an online event, but it wants to be a live webinar. So we have people from different parts of the world, Spain, Europe, Asia, and America. And we want to invite you to introduce yourselves using the chat tool. So you can say hello, who you are, and at least we can have a little bit of contact. And secondly, we have the chance to follow the webinar in 2 languages, Spanish and English. At the top bottom of the screen, you can find a button bar with the interpretation tool icon. There you could choose between listening always in the original version, or everything in Spanish, or everything in English. So you can choose and listen in the language you prefer. Thirdly, as you could see, we are recording the webinar, and all of you will receive by email the recordings, but they will be also online in the web page of the project, and also in our university's web page. Fourthly, you can take notes of the different presentation, and we will have time to answer all of them after all the presentation. You can do questions in any of both languages, and using again the chat tool. Okay, and we will get the questions and try to answer at the end of the webinar. And last but not least, I want to say thank you to all of you, all the participants, the speakers, all the Embrace team, and all the technicians that has support or given us support to organize this webinar. So I hope we can enjoy, learn, think, reflect, and act to improve the well-being and mental health situation of our university students. Now I give Begoña Pérez the floor. She is the Vice Rector of University Awareness, Culture and Dissemination of our university. Begoña.
Buenos días, Egunon. Good morning. Es un placer estar aquí inaugurando este webinar sobre salud mental, y este webinar que forma parte de este proyecto europeo tan importante. Generalmente hay una inauguración simbólica con alguien del equipo rectoral de las universidades. Yo muchas veces, cuando estaba en la parte en la que estáis todas las personas presentes escuchando, siempre me preguntaba por qué tenía que haber esta inauguración oficial, y a veces por qué eran tan largas. Ahora que estoy en el equipo directivo de una universidad, veo cada vez más importante estos espacios simbólicos en los que la representación de los equipos rectorales de alguna forma Estoy leyendo que no se puede escuchar bien la traducción. No sé si
Tranquila. Continúa, perdona, sí.
Vale. En ese sentido, ahora que formo parte de este equipo de dirección, veo cada vez más importantes estos actos simbólicos por lo que implican. Por un lado, porque los equipos rectorales pueden de alguna forma respaldar a los equipos de investigación que estáis participando y dar la importancia que merecen, ¿no?, en términos de reconocimiento y valor. Pero hay otro camino de vuelta, que es el poder llevar a los equipos de dirección de las universidades los resultados de vuestros trabajos de investigación. En este caso me parece muy importante que los equipos de dirección de las universidades estemos muy al tanto de los resultados de este proyecto, porque es un tema importantísimo. Y yo tengo que agradecer a los investigadores de mi universidad, a Izaskun Andueza, a Rubén Las Heras, a Marcela, el hecho de que me inviten, porque me llevo de vuelta resultados a un equipo rectoral que estará abierto a ver cuáles son las evidencias. Agradecer a todo el profesorado asistente, agradecer también a las personas invitadas que estáis aquí conectadas. Tengo que decir que represento a mi universidad, pero entiendo que también a todos los equipos directivos de Birmingham, de Creta, de Lituania, de Belgrado, que igualmente estarán al tanto de lo que digáis hoy aquí y de la evolución de vuestro proyecto de investigación. Me parece que el equipo que constituye este proyecto Erasmus+, pues ha elegido de manera muy pertinente la temática de la salud mental y de los servicios de apoyo de la educación superior, en concreto de los servicios universitarios. La cuestión de la salud mental de la juventud, en general de la salud mental de la población, es una cuestión que está cobrando una importancia relevante. Y las universidades tenemos que dar respuestas. En general lo intentamos dar de temáticas de salud, de desarrollo económico, de educación, pero específicamente este es ahora uno de los retos, ¿no?, la salud mental de la población, no solo ubicada en el contexto de la pandemia, sino en general en los últimos años por todas las transformaciones que estamos viviendo y que de alguna forma se intensifican en esa etapa de transición hacia la edad adulta para nuestra gente joven. Creo que es importante que las universidades siempre aportemos a los debates públicos en términos de evidencias. Ayer mismo, a modo de ejemplo, yo hablaba con una representante política y de alguna forma banalizaba la situación de salud mental diciendo que no había datos específicos, que no se evidenciaba el aumento, podía ser fruto de los medios de comunicación, de una moda, de un cierto alarmismo. Creo que es importante que la universidad esté ahí para aportar realmente evidencias de los sucesos que están acaeciendo en términos de incremento de problemas de salud mental, de transformaciones, de evolución y también de evidencia de cuáles son las mejores formas para atenderlos, cuáles son los mejores servicios universitarios en este caso, pero cuáles son los mejores servicios para atenderlos. Por un lado, como digo, el tema de investigación. En segundo lugar, me parece importante esta parte aplicada que tiene el proyecto, que tiene que ver con reconocer buenas prácticas de atención, de servicios de apoyo a la salud mental en las universidades. Desde hace años las universidades somos referentes en muchos ámbitos, en lo que tiene que ver con los consumos energéticos, en lo que tiene que ver con la promoción de la salud, del deporte, de la cultura. Creo que también en este terreno de la salud mental nos van a mirar esperando una cierta luz en el camino para que podamos orientar cuál es la mejor forma de tratar los servicios de salud mental. Nosotros en esta universidad estamos preocupados por nuestro servicio de atención psicológica, ha tenido un cierto incremento de las demandas en los últimos años y además una cierta complejización de los casos. Son casos que duran más tiempo, que viven de manera más intensa las problemáticas y estamos preocupados por ofrecer una buena salud mental, pero también porque tenemos que de alguna forma proyectar ese modelo de atención a la salud mental a los servicios de atención a la salud mental de nuestra región, de nuestra comarca, de los servicios de Navarra, ¿no? En ese sentido es importante que recordemos, y me toca quizás a mí como responsable, que los servicios de la universidad son un referente hacia afuera. Debemos hacerlo bien por nuestra comunidad universitaria, pero debemos hacerlo bien porque nos miran. Y la última de las cuestiones que quería decir hoy aquí es que también las universidades tenemos la misión principal de formar personas. Y si bien vuestro proyecto está orientado a investigar la evolución de la salud mental y a investigar los mejores servicios de atención universitaria, de alguna forma tendríamos que ser capaces las universidades de recoger vuestras conclusiones para poder impactar en nuestra misión principal, que es la formación. En algún momento tenemos que introducir competencias de prevención, competencias de conocimiento sobre salud mental en la formación de nuestros estudiantes, tanto los que estudian Derecho como los que estudian Medicina o los que estudian Trabajo Social, tienen que tener una mínima noción de cuáles son las principales problemáticas de salud mental para poder después en su vida personal y profesional tener esta mirada inclusiva hacia la salud emocional y hacia la salud mental. Por tanto, de nuevo agradecer estar en este momento de inauguración, estar a la espera de las conclusiones y los frutos de vuestro trabajo y desearos que tengáis hoy una jornada muy valiosa y una evolución igualmente interesante de vuestro proyecto. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much. Muchas gracias, Begoña, por tus palabras llenas siempre de sabiduría, y la verdad que es una gozada poder tenerte como vicerrectora, sabiendo que siempre estás tan atenta a todo lo que podemos aportar desde lo que hacemos, ¿no? en estos proyectos. Así que gracias. Thank you very much, Begoña. And now I think Geraldine is here. Are you here, Geraldine? I think Geraldine.
Yes, Geraldine is here.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I am here. Sorry, I was
Okay.
struggling. I'm having some technical problems. My machine doesn't seem to like Zoom very much. Apologies.
Okay.
Hiya. Hello
Hi,
to everyone.
Geraldine. Yes, she is professor and researcher at the School of Social Sciences of Birmingham City University, and she is the main coordinator of the project and will present what is Embrace Higher Education Project and its relevance in mental health and well-being in higher education institutions. Geraldine, if you want, you can share now your screen if you need.
Thank you. If I may just share, that's lovely. Thanks.
Yep.
I will share my screen. Okay. Share screen. How do I? Oh. I'm so sorry. That's not right at all. I do apologise. We don't use Zoom ever, so I'm trying my best to. I may need some advice on how to use Zoom. Well, I can go ahead without the overheads anyway. It doesn't matter because I know them very, very well. So I can just put those down. Hang on. Stop sharing. Okay. Thank you. Okay. So just to let you know a little bit about the project, this project emerged out of a recognition of some of the daily problems that people experience working in higher education. And talking about that is not just about academics. That's really important to think about. It's librarians, it's people who are working in the registry or in other aspects of the university. And we are all subject to the political landscape and the social landscape that we have to live and work within. And so all of us are facing really big problems in relation to working with students in a variety of ways. Now, some of the drivers for us to think about mental health issues, therefore, come from our own personal experience of working with people who are struggling and students who are struggling every day of the year. But also some of those drivers come from the context around us that demand that we understand our students and get the best from our students, very often without being really concerned about their well-being and their needs. So some of the key drivers that we experience are things like the assumption that we're going to have students who can achieve and that who are able to do their own thing and to do well in academia. But that it demands that students have good mental health and well-being. So that's a key thing for us, is that push for us to achieve with our students, but very often takes absolutely no account whatsoever of the employment landscape that students are in, the high academic demand, and the way in which, you know, our students are under more stress than they've ever been in the past. You think about the debt, about the number of students who are struggling with a variety of social issues. We're also, a key driver for us is actually thinking about the societal impact of helping students. You know, students don't stay students forever. They go on into the world and they develop their skills and they become parents, or they themselves go on to change the world through what they do in their careers or whatever. And so what we realized in the beginning of this project was the real importance for society more broadly of helping students to have good health and well-being. And we knew from our own experience, we had experienced students with depression, quality of life problems, anxiety, substance misuse, interpersonal problems, and all those kind of long-term impacts that as well come with the lifetime impacts of students not being able to have good mental health and well-being when they're young, or when they first do their studies if they're not young, and what happens to them later on and how that impacts society. So we knew there was a problem. We knew there was a literature about the problem as well. And there was really a driver there to try and focus on how we help universities tackle this issue. So the key kind of aims and objectives of the project relate to consolidating good practice into an easy implemented format. So we knew that there are things out there across Europe and things that are happening that are really, really good, but they don't get drawn together. They don't get put in a way that's easily assimilatable. And so it becomes hard to change practice without that available. So what we aimed to do was to pull together things through using a work package model, where we would create toolkits, and we have created toolkits, as you'll see on our website, things that can be used by academics and non-academics working across universities to think about their practice, to think about how they can make things better, and then to disseminate that for everybody. So what you're going to see today is a product of that really important process of drawing together that material, thinking about how we can relate it to how things work in higher education across Europe, which isn't easy, because you've got to think about the differences between different areas and how they operate, and different countries. We've seen those differences and tried to build that in through bringing in a kind of focus on one's own practice. You'll see that in the materials online, and we've done that in a model that's easily usable. So today, what is being presented by our colleagues is to actually look at how we can think about these issues into the future, and mental health and well-being, and hopefully it will enable you to be able to relate your own experience of working in HE to the materials, and in a kind of incremental model of development, go through the toolkits to build skills. And we hope that that will be something that can influence and change the way mental health and well-being is dealt with across Europe for students, and for us as well, you know, as people working in the field, because it's something that challenges us every day. So thank you very much. That's the project. And now my colleagues there in Spain are going to present you with some really exciting ideas going forward.
Okay, thank you very much, Geraldine. And now, Marcela, I give Marcela the floor to talk about one of the project outputs, and she's going to talk about Tolkien-based Tolkien-based support toolkit. So, Marcela, if you want, you can start sharing
Okay.
the screen.
Okay.
Who is here? It's working.
Okay, you can see all my screen.
Yes.
Okay, so first of all, thank you very much for all the people that is participating today in this webinar. And as Izaskun has mentioned, I will present one of the toolkits that we have developed as part of the Embrace Higher Education project. This toolkit was developed in the Public University of Navarra by Izaskun Andueza, Ruben Laceras, and myself, Marcela Bejarano. So I will speak a little bit about what is Tolkien-based support and why we designed a toolkit of this topic. And then I will present you the toolkit and we will finalize with a short visit to the website. So you can have like some kind of idea of how to use and explore this toolkit. So first of all, this toolkit was developed as part of the Embrace Higher Education project. So it was a demand of the project to develop a toolkit that can show a wide variety of forms of support through spoken support. And then also because there is like an increased demand of psychological support in higher education institutions, especially especially related to the COVID-19 pandemic. And finally, because Tolkien-based support is something that is not only provided by mental health professionals, so it ensures an holistic well-being and understand the relation of mental health with psychosocial factors. So having this in mind, we were thinking how to develop this, and we concluded that the Tolkien-based support is something that involves different forms of intervention aiming at improving students' mental health and well-being through different ways of spoken support. We also conclude that this support could be provided not only by mental health professionals, but also by professors, staff, and even students. And finally, taking into account the way new technologies have changed the way we communicate each other, we also take into account if this support was provided face-to-face or through online platforms. So now I will show you like a little bit the content of the toolkit, and then we can go to visit the website. So Tolkien-based support is a category that sounds really big, and because of that, we decide to organize the toolkit in 3 main categories: support programs, which include other subcategories; counseling, which includes psychological counseling and career guidance counseling; and pastoral care, which is highly related to tutoring processes at the university. So we create these resume schemes to try to summarize and make like an easy way to understand the content of the toolkit. And we have finalizing with the systematization of 15 practices. So in this scheme, you can see here, which category belongs to the practice, the name of the practice, the university or organization who is responsible of it, the country where it is located, the format, if it is online or face-to-face, the modality, if it is an individual or peer or group intervention, and finally, which person provides the support, if it is a professional or students, or is even an online platform who provides the support. And here you will find like the symbology and the meanings of each of these symbols. So, we finalized this toolkit taking into account these 3 main categories. We designed like some kind of some guidelines of use, which are available in English and will be uploaded soon in Spanish. And in these guidelines of use, you will also find a short literature review of all these 3 categories and links to go for further information in case you want to go deep in some specific topic. It is everything clickable, so you can explore the toolkit in a diverse way. There is also an introduction video that shows the content of the toolkit. And as I had mentioned before, we have collected 15 practical examples of different universities, of different topics that I think that are really interesting. And 13 of them dispose also of a video where the people responsible of the practice explain not only what is the practice all about, but also the success factors and maybe some things that you should take into account in case you would like to replicate this kind of program or use this application at your university. And finally, if you show this symbol, it means video lecture. And there are also available 5 video lectures of different topics that that we hope can be interesting and helpful for all of you. So now I will show you how you can explore the website. Sorry, I have to stop one moment to share the screen and then. Okay, so now you can see my. Okay, so when you go directly to embracehighereducation.org, you will find like also the different cool toolkits that we also invite all of you to explore, but now we are presenting this. And when you click on here, with this symbol of people speaking, you go directly to the homepage of this toolkit. Here you will find the introduction. Here you can download the PDF document and soon will be uploaded in Spanish. In case you just want to check the infographics, you can open here and download them, the introduction video. And here in this lateral bar, you will always find the information of the authors and the people responsible of the practices as well. And here is the clickable scheme. So when you go here, you can see that there are, like, for example, these like bullet points, pink bullet points. And when you click them, you are able to, you are able to open to see like the practice directly, but you can also go below and explore the toolkit through a specific category. Or going just like to, in case you just want to check the video lecture, you can click as well here. And I want to show you how the infographics looks. And well, as you can see, you can explore the toolkit in a diverse way. And I think that our invitation today is to explore, because we believe that interchange ideas is quite relevant. And we have seen this through the work of the Spanish Universities Health Network. And we invite you, all of you, to explore this and maybe to try to replicate or implement some of these practices and programs, because we believe that they are really effective and also reinforce the holistic approach of mental health and well-being. Sorry that my internet is going a little bit slow, but here is an example of how look the infographics. So here you will find the information of the people responsible. And below here, it's just that is a little bit slow, my internet. I'm so sorry for this. Well, if you go, below, you will find here in this box the video of the infographic, and here up you will find the information of the practice, the main goals, and some key elements in case you would like to develop something like that at your university. So, well, I think I'm going to wait a little bit if this works. Otherwise, we can continue with the webinar. And thank you very much for this opportunity. And I really invite all of you to explore the toolkit later or as soon as possible.
Okay, thank you very much, Marcela. I think all of us take your words about explore the Embrace webpage, because everything we have been working in the last 3 years is there. So don't worry, I'm sure they will go to the webpage and see all the practices we have collected. And yeah. And to continue with this, I don't want to be very late. So I would like to present now The next one that is Akis. Yeah, he is professor at the Department of Psychology and director of the Student Counseling Center of the University of Crete in Greece. He will present the current context and challenges on university mental health, taking into account their experience and expertise as the director of the Counseling Center of the University of Crete. So, Akis, are you there?
Sí, buenos días. Espero
Buenos días.
que todos estén bien.
Muy bien.
This is all about my Spanish for today. I'm really trying to practice. Thank you very much, Izaskun and our Spanish partner, for this invitation. It's a pleasure to be here. I will be sharing my screen, if that's okay. I suppose you can see my screen.
Yes.
And now the full screen. Is that correct? Yeah. Okay, great. So yes, yes, I'm Akis. As Izaskun just said, I'm teaching counseling psychology at the University of Crete, Department of Psychology, and also have the responsibility of running the counseling center, the student counseling center at the our institution. I'm also I have the pleasure to be a part of this project, the Embrace project, and it's really been a pleasure to work with partners from different countries. Today I'm going to be talking about the context and challenges of university mental health, and I'm happy to discuss any issues later on that may arise out of this or the other presentations. So the entry to higher education, it's been a really exciting process. It's a new level of independence for students. It coincides with changing body and mind, in social changes in social relationships. Students, have a variety of options above them and in front of them, meet new people, make new relationships. There are many opportunities ahead, but also it is an exciting period. But also we know from literature that the entry to higher education exposes students to risk factors such as stress out of the academic. I'll try to speak a little bit slower. Sorry, there's a translator there trying to translate. Sorry. So there's also stress surrounding the university experience, financial issues, and mental health issues, which we are now will be talking more in detail. So some facts on students' mental health. And in this project, in the Embrace project, we've been conducting a thorough literature review on this, and we have found that, oops, this is going on their own device, that they're in a higher risk of developing common mental health issues. They encounter many stressors and transitional events, and this coincides also with the age range of the students, which we know from the literature and the clinical practice, that they are in the developmental peak for the rise of many mental health issues. And also we know from the literature that the psychological distress in university students is increasing both in severity and incidence, and there's plenty of literature confirming this. This is a graph from the University of Crete, from our counseling center, depicting the rise of the student admissions per academic year. As you can see, the amount of students admitted to our counseling center has increased dramatically over the last few years. and this data up to 2021. So, of course, the pandemic, the COVID-19, has played a crucial role in this and has increased the number of students that seek help in our student counseling center. The most common mental health issues, and that concerns both our counseling center and this is data from international studies, as before mentioned, is depression, anxiety, OCD, eating disorders, which I haven't included here, but eating disorders, we see that very often in our counseling center, substance abuse, but also challenges, sorry, this is, I don't do that, but also challenges that have to do with interpersonal issues, financial issues, academic issues, and cultural issues. So students face a lot and a whole array of challenges during their student years. Now, of course, the mental health of students during the COVID-19 is a particular issue. Switching to online classes has created many issues that were not existing before, like, for example, the technostress, the anxiety and the stress stemming from the use of online means. You all remember that we had to switch to online teaching very immediately, and this has caused a lot of stress to students and educators, I would say. Disruption of schedule, lack of resources. Many institutions lack the necessary resources to do that, and that created some additional stress to both parties. Research shows that 71% of students had an increase in stress and anxiety out of this situation. And also the pandemic and the isolation caused an increase in social isolation. People had to stay at home. They lost their connections, their friends. They moved to their hometown, so they lost their fellow students. Concerns about academic performance, and there was an overall disruption in their well-being. Also, literature suggests that the most serious mental health concerns, we will be hearing our partners from Lithuania later on, such as suicidal thinking or ideation or severe depression, and also self-harm, has increased during the pandemic period, which rings a bell about the services that are necessary, that it's necessary to be provided to students. Also, the access to mental health services during the pandemic has been more difficult because people could not have sessions face-to-face. They could not pop into the counseling centers, so that made it more difficult to access counselors to receive the help they needed. Now, some challenges that the higher education students face concern the socioeconomic crisis. Bear in mind that these students have grown up during the recession of 2008 and later on, have seen family members to lose their jobs and homes, and are now confronted with other issues and challenges like loss of employment, loss of income, uncertainty for the employment future, so that all these challenges has intensified and impacted on their mental health. Also, the great unpredictability and insecurity, both in the social and political landscape, the COVID pandemic, the ensuing syndemics, the Brexit, the changes in the European scenery has caused many more additional concerns to students and their families. And also, as already said, stress and anxiety have gone up dramatically, particularly for young people, from low socioeconomic circumstances, ethnic, sexual, and gender minorities. And the literature has confirmed that these groups have been impacted to a larger extent than other groups. Now, other challenges that the higher education institutions face, because this is very much connected to students' mental health, is to promote students' connectedness. I mean, out of this situation, the COVID, the sense of belonging needs to be re-established in academic institutions, the satisfaction with their life, to advance, deepen students' engagement and involvement with the learning experience and the life in the university, the relationships with instructors and mentors, community outreach, partnerships with the wider community, service learning. We had a webinar on service learning in Crete, online webinar about service community, service learning, internships, innovation applied research, leadership development. All these are challenges that higher education institutions face and will be facing over the next period. And of course, volunteerism, which is part of kind of service learning. There are other challenges that relate to teaching and learning specifically, and one of them concerns the engagement of students. What we see in Crete is that students are disengaged from the learning process. They are there just to get knowledge without processing, without being able to process it. HAIs need to do things about improving dropout rates and other forms of attrition. This is an interesting topic, which is not very well researched, I think, internationally. Integrating teaching and learning approach that enable critical and creative thinking, and not only this, rigid forms of learning, absorbing knowledge, and without being able to think about it, to reflect on this. So making learning student-centered, embracing active learning and collaborative practices that are connected to students' lives and to their interests, and also the academic integrity, another big issue in universities, cheating and plagiarism, equality, big thing now, and also supporting students to embrace change and transformation, so transforming the so-called adrift or disoriented students to active citizens who can create change. This also has impacted and is connected to challenges in student counseling. I mean, counseling comes as a means of helping students, but there are challenges in student counseling as well. One of it is the need for identifying early students at risk. And there are different methodologies. We try to create a methodology in Crete where we can identify students from the first year that at risk and be able to follow them during their studies to prevent, the increase of mental health issue or a dropout. Also, another challenge is the increase in complex and severe in nature mental health issues. And we see that very often, and the literature, as we said, confirms that as well. When student counseling centers are not psychotherapy centers, but often we are faced with the need to facilitate and to help students with more severe issues like major depression or severe eating disorders, or even more psychotic-like symptoms. And we always struggle between the need and the desire to help them, but also the complexity and the reality of few resources of doing that. As I said, student counseling centers are not psychotherapy centers. They operate in a different way. The counseling for foreign students also is a challenge for students. I mean, the mobility is there, a mobility of students across different countries, and these students often face issues that need to be treated, to be faced. We have Erasmus students that seek help, so there should be a way to help the students in their own language, for example, and also the COVID-19 related psychological factors that demand and require new ways of dealing with them, like, for example, traumatic stress, social isolation things, Zoom fatigue, and stuff like that. And also the extended role of the student counseling centers. One demand from our university is the need to offer support to the admin staff, librarians, as Geraldine said, people in the in admin positions. They seem to be needing also help, but austerity measures, shortage in staff are reality, are a cruel reality, and our resources often are limited. And this often results in long waiting lists. Now, regarding methods of student counseling, we know already there are different models and methods, modalities, therapeutic modalities, CBT, psychodynamic counseling, mindfulness, psychoeducation, and group counseling. And these are a more so-called traditional ways of helping students. However, these challenges that I've just mentioned pose the need for new methods of counseling in student counseling. So one method and one model is the stepped care model, which is an alternative to the traditional one-to-one counseling. Step care is a comprehensive and integrated approach that addresses prevention, psychoeducation through specialized interventions. This model aims to reduce mental health concerns with a more efficient system of care. It's based on a thorough assessment of the students' needs. And as you can see, students are basically stepped up to more intensive services if their needs cannot be met at the first option offered, or that they choose to step down according to their needs. It basically tries to mitigate the workload of this counseling center staff and reduces the long waiting lists. And it has proven to be more efficient and to be able to facilitate and serve more students. And it also tries to connect students with other services, both within the university and outside in the wider community. A more specific way of counseling is the online counseling, which has become one of the most common practices now. And I think, and literature, I think, confirms that it has come to stay, the online counseling. Of course, there are technological challenges and ethical issues that already been there and being discussed, but online counseling seems to be more attractive and engaging to young people, has some benefits, provides sense of security, reduces shame. It's more approachable to a wider community, and can reach the students in their hometowns and basically everywhere they are. Self-help tools are also an alternative method of helping, like, for example, online support groups and forums, screening tools, self-assessment questionnaires, information, or other therapeutic options. All these kind of methods and tools have been included in our project, in the Embrace project. And as Marcella presented before, they are available for both students and educators or other university admin staff. The self-help tools benefits is reducing stigma, which still seems to be an issue for students, increases independence and self-reliance for students, and it's cost effective. Literature has confirmed that these methods, the online or web-based counseling, improves mental health issues, like, for example, stress, anxiety, and depression symptoms. And these are quite recent literature that confirms that. Eating disorders, tobacco and drug use, and overall psychological well-being. Now, I'm heading towards the end of my presentation, and I wanted to show you what Chris Drew from Teesside University did. This guy compiled a list of university mission statement examples from 23 universities. He took the mission statement and fed them through a word cloud, so to find the most common words and phrases that were included in a higher education mission. So these are 23 university mission statements. This is his results. So these are words that are included in the university mission statements. You can see international, community, learning, research, knowledge, education, graduates. Okay, this is according to the number of the words included in these statements. You can very easily see that at the center, and the most common phrase, word that came up is students. So students seems to be the first mission and the most important mission of universities. And I will conclude with the words of Peter Gedjens, the former rector of Freie University of Berlin, that the university needs to create a supportive environment and needs to intensify the public support for this. If the university does not care about students, it should not exist. I think this concludes the work we've been doing both in Embrace and in our universities. Gracias, thank you very much. I'll stop sharing.
Thank you very much, Akis, for giving this very concrete and interesting presentation that talks about the context, the needs our students have, but also our universities and also our counseling services. It has been very interesting, and I hope people is taking notes. And as I said before, if you have any question, we will answer all of them at the end of all presentations. Now, if you agree, we can go to the next presentation. That I think Xenia, Virginia, and Jokubas. Sorry, I will not say your how is it? Surname, sorry, and you can say if you want, but I'm sure I will don't say correctly. So they are three of the psychologists, community psychologists of the Institute of Psychology of Vilnius University in Lithuania. The three of them will present their experience in Vilnius University in addressing suicide and psychological crisis in the university setting. So as you may know, Lithuania is one of the countries with the highest rate of suicide. Therefore, their experience in this area is very relevant. Xenia, I think you are going to share with us. Yeah.
Yes, okay. I'm starting to share the screen, and okay, you can see my presentation now. Okay.
Thank you very much, Xenia.
Yes, I will start with very, very short introduction and presenting really the problem for you to know that historically Lithuania has had very high suicide rates, and especially among male population, and the rates have fallen since their peak in the middle of 1990s with the collapse of the USSR. But however, with a suicide rate of 26.1 per 100,000 inhabitants. Lithuania is the most suicidal country in Europe and the 5th most suicidal country in the world. And so these facts make prevention, intervention, and postvention of suicide in Lithuania the issue of national level. But let me speak also about suicide rates in universities. And in Lithuania, we have 14 public universities and 8 private universities, also 24 colleges, and students usually start entry higher education at the age of 18 and 19. And like Akis has told right now, this is the age when people become very vulnerable to different distresses and which are related to some processes in higher education. We don't have the statistics of all universities in Lithuania and suicide rates. However, you can see that there are more than 24,000 students in this academic year, and we can see some trends from suicide rates from our Vilnius University. So we can see the 3 categories: suicides, attempts, which are orange, and accidental deaths. And these statistics our university monitors because it is very important. And you can see a slight decrease in 19 and 20 years, but however here we can see the COVID situation, and as the studies have shown, anxiety and suicidal ideation and all these problems were related to COVID pandemic situation here. And by now the statistic shows that we have this year, this academic year, 2 suicides and 2 attempts. Of course, we are speaking about the cases which are identified. Still, it is worth noting that suicide topic is taboo, and in our country too, because we have Catholic traditions which make suicide a very big sin. And as for other topics which are tabooed, we can see that the cases may not be identified. However, the monitoring of these statistics is very important, and our university has a clear position to speak about this problem openly. And though it may sound like having the greatest rates compared to other higher education institutions in Lithuania, however, the more we speak, the more we know, and the more people are ready to deal with crises which may end with suicide. And the last thing I would like to say before Virginia starts presenting some interesting practices on prevention and dealing with crises is that all the colleges admit the existing problem, and in year 2021, Lithuanian National Union of Students, Vilnius University Students Representation, and 2 rector conferences of Lithuanian universities and colleges have signed the memorandum on strengthening mental health in Lithuania higher education institutions, which prioritizes the topic of crisis management in higher education. So please, Virginia, could you you can speak now. Yes.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Ksenia. And good morning, everyone. First of all, I would like to congratulate our colleagues from Navarro University for organizing this excellent events. I'm really happy to be here and for this opportunity to present our services and our activities, what we do in order to implement the document which just Ksenia mentioned, and also how we tackle this problem. So first of all, I would like to start with the suicide prevention issues, and I would like to mention that in 2019, the certain amount of university budget was allocated to outsource experts who provided safe talk trainings for different groups of both students and university staff. And because there was the idea that we need to train as many people as possible how to recognize the signs and risk factors for suicide, and also how to refer them to the professional help. However, in 2020, actually the authorities of the university decided that maybe it's not so important to allocate so many funds to outsourcing, but rather implement and establish the full-time positions for the university community psychologists. And because it is much more cost-effective, and of course this decision would help to develop a comprehensive system of crisis management at the universities, at the university setting, because the community psychologists can address not only preventive issues, but also they can deal with the intervention and postvention aspects. So these community psychologists, university community psychologists, they started to provide trainings, also lectures and different psychoeducational activities on particularly focusing on psychological first aid, and also particularly focusing on the first year students. Of course, we also noticed that when community psychologists appeared, so many staff members, when they saw a person crying, the student crying, they, even without any asking, they tried to refer it to professional help. But we know that when people are crisis, not always professional help is needed. So we developed a program which is called Padėk. In Lithuanian language means let's help or help. And actually the title was chosen as an acronym for P means pastebėk, it's notice, A atvirai paklausk, it's ask, D dėmesingai klausyk, it's listen, E emociškai palaikyk, so it's support emotionally, and K kartu ieškokite išeičių, search for solutions together. You may see all these words in Lithuanian on your screens, but actually these very simple but very effective techniques could help, could enable the community members of the university to provide emotional support to each other, just to pay attention that somebody may be suffering, and also how to just help, how to ask and how to listen to them. Our experience also has shown that most crises for students appear at night and on weekends rather than during regular working hours. So they usually happen in student dormitories, so places where students, especially not who residents of other cities and towns of Lithuania and people who are coming abroad, they They live in dormitories. So we, since this year, we started implementing the new program, which is called Gatekeepers in Dormitories. And this program invites students who are not necessarily from the field of psychology or social studies, but those who are active and really willing to contribute to the well-being of university community. The next part of crisis management system. Ksenia, can you move the slide? Yes, so this is that is suicide intervention, and it's very important to mention that our community psychologists are equipped with cell phones so that community members who are in need for emergent counseling, they can reach them by phone or just writing an email to a special email address, and they can really, how to say, we tried to develop an easy to access way of our community psychologists. Also, this year, due to the war happening in Ukraine, we have quite a big flow of refugee students coming from Ukraine, and also not only students, but also lecturers, professors, other academic staff. So we can see that we were even very lucky to receive a person and to employ a psychologist, a professional psychologist from Ukraine, who actually is graduating the professional level of existential psychotherapy program here in Lithuania this August. So she is employed as a community psychologist, and also she's reachable for urgent matters and can provide professional support for students in their native Ukrainian and Russian language. And it is very important because when people are in crisis, it's quite hard for them to try to explain how they feel, how they think, and what they experience, you know, and try to select words in English or the other language, which is not so, how to say, common for them. Also, of course, it's very important to mention that, you know, these several community psychologists, which I am talking about, they are not alone for the population of 24,000 students at our university, what just mentioned by Ksenia. So we do have a group of around even around 40 counselors behind them, which actually combine their counseling hours at our university and training center, counseling and training center, with academic work at the university or private psychotherapy practice. So after the provision of this emergency support or help, our community psychologists can refer students for further psychological help to other psychological counselors. And finally, the crisis postvention part. So actually one of the biggest challenges which we faced for crisis management was related to the communication, because after every accident which happened at the university, different staff members from different divisions and departments, they felt obliged to inform us about what happened. So instead of diving into the situation and trying to plan or starting taking actions, we had to answer all the phone calls and discuss what happened, what needs to be done, and what is going to do what. So that's why we tried to develop several algorithms. We call them algorithms, so that every community member could know whom to approach and who is informing whom. So one of the examples you can see on your screens. I will not go into detail because of the lack of the time, but I would like to also to mention that for us, of course, it was a very big advantage that Vilnius University has the Center of Research on Suicidology. And this center is one of the leading knowledge hubs in Lithuania. So professionals from this center, they really helped us a lot in developing necessary services and also in providing supervisions for our psychologists after every event. So here you can also see, maybe it's not underlined, but that one of the important developments, also it seems very simple one, but very, very important, was the creation of a joint email group where representatives of key divisions can receive a message about the accident, and they know that psychologists are aware of what happened and that they started taking actions. So it's krize@vu.lt is very important email for us and for the others in order to keep communicating in a very simple and effective way. So after receiving the message about the incident, psychologists select all detailed information, identify those who are the most affected, and organize group debriefing sessions. And of course, if needed, individual consultations are also provided. And I would invite my colleague Jokūbas, who is one of the community psychologists, and he will further share his experience on the challenges which psychologists face while implementing the crisis management activities. Thank you.
Thank you, Virginia. Can you hear me?
Yes, we do.
Okay. So first of all, many thanks to organizers, and it is very important for us to reflect our experience about managing the crisis at Vilnius University. And I'm Jokūbas, a community psychologist and also a PhD student at Vilnius University. And today I would like to discuss the main obstacles we face while managing crisis at Vilnius University. So although we have a crisis intervention plan that was mentioned, and it is communicated to those responsible for crisis management. However, not everything goes according to these guidelines. So firstly, difficulties arise in the informing about the crisis. As previously stated, the director of Student Accommodation Center should inform university community psychologists about suicide in student campus. Or if the student does not live in a dormitory, the faculty member should inform about the student's suicide or accident. But unfortunately, sometimes we do not get information about the case at all, or either we are informed too late. And this happens a few days, weeks, or even months after the crisis. And in these cases, no one in charge of crisis management in the campuses or faculties organizes intervention, no one. Or intervention is organized selectively and without any psychological justification. It is very sadly. And second, in case where we are informed about the crisis, it is very necessary to control information and maintain confidentiality, because the information about the student's name, surnames, types or type of accident, and other related details are very sensitive. Next slide, Ksenia, please. And second, there are also difficulties in planning and implementing the crisis intervention. And here I would like to give you some examples from our work. So to illustrate, administrators at campus or faculty may decide to suppress certain information that is important for a focused and effective organized intervention. Or, for example, we discuss a lot, especially in recent years, about the format in which the briefing should take place. By that I mean directly or remotely. And the briefing is a brief intervention in a small group setting immediately following a crisis. One other thing relates to these difficulties. There have been several crises this year that have remained ambiguous and raise many questions. For instance, a university employee fell from the 6th floor at home and was seriously injured. So whether it was an accident or an attempt to commit suicide, or the student was found dead in bed in a dormitory. So once more, whether it was suicide or instantaneous death. We know that when crisis appeared, intervention need to be given immediately. However, intervention depends on whether the crisis. Fourth, sometimes after the crisis, people unrelated to the situation starts to intensively explain psychologists how to organize intervention. And thus they are taking the role of an experts. Fifth, I would like to remind you that not every accident is a psychological crisis. And from time to time, we as psychologists tend to overestimate these accidents. And for example, drug overdose does not necessarily imply suicidal acts. And some students think drugs will help them have them more fun, lose weight, and even study more efficiently. And it's nothing about a suicide. One more, we often have to confront the dormitory or faculty administrators when trying to probe the need for post-crisis intervention. And lastly, we need to remember that students and university staff who have been affected by the crisis are not only vulnerable and weak, but have the resources to cope with the situation. And every crisis presents opportunities to psychological growth. So this is my reflection about the crisis management, and there are many reasons that reflect these problems mentioned. I would like to highlight a few of them. So this case that is widespread. Specialists can deny that the crisis has affected university staff or students, but we must bear in mind that crisis, and especially suicide of a colleague or student, can activate unresolved experiences or traumas from the past. Also, the defense mechanisms that Freud formulated primarily to individuals had their direct counterparts in organizations. And first and foremost is denial I'm talking about. And indeed, projection, it is another defense mechanism, often manifests in time of crisis. And according to Freud, projection refers to unconsciously taking unwanted emotions and attributing them to someone else. So interesting that studies show that the more an organization subscribe to these various defense mechanisms, such as denial, projection, the less prepared and able they were to respond to major crises. And lastly, high rates of university staff change leads that not everyone responsible for crisis management is familiar with the plan we presented before. So as I said, that was my reflection about working as a community psychologist. So thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Jakubas, Xenia and Virginia. Always happy to share with us all your expertise in this topic that is increasing the interest of, I think, all universities, because the situation is in this case going, it's increasing the critical situations at universities. And I want to rescue that word that living crisis as opportunities. And yeah, thank you for that. And now we will continue with the next speaker. Let me, see if I can share. Okay, here we have, yes, she is Caroline Holler, I think, and she is a psychologist and a PhD student and associated to the German Depression Foundation. She's going to present us a tool called I Fight Depression. It's a very interesting tool that she's going to share now with us. Good morning, Caroline. Are you
Hello.
there? Yeah.
Yes, I am. Thank you for the friendly introduction.
Okay.
And also thank you for the invitation. It was a very interesting mix of practical approaches, theoretical thoughts, and I'm already curious about the results of your own project that I will check out. But now I will use a bit of the time left to present to you the I Fight Depression tool. First of all, it's not my own product. The I Fight Depression tool is provided by the European Alliance Against Depression, a network of several countries where organizations work together and sharing knowledge, and every member can decide to use the I Fight Depression tool in their own country. The German Depression Foundation is just one of the members, and I'm both doing research on the I Fight Depression tool and involved in the implementation in Germany. That's why I will be talking today. I Fight Depression is a self-management tool for people affected with depression, and I will give you a very short view how this looks like. As one example, we're by far not the only people who do this, but this is one of them, and give also a very short insight into the effectiveness and how we could ensure it for the I Fight Depression tool. To get it ahead of some confusement that always occurs, is there's both an I Fight Depression tool that you can see on the left side, which has a login screen and requires an invitation from a healthcare professional to access, and there is the I Fight Depression Awareness website, which offers information for different groups, both people affected from depression and also their families, community professionals, and everything, to raise awareness, to provide information. This is not what I will be talking about today, but it's from the same project area, so it has the same name. Both are available in several languages. We currently have 17 languages on the awareness website and 14 different languages in the I Fight Depression tool. This language conglomerate came to be because it was developed in an EU project called PreadyNew, first developed in 2014. The current version of the tool was finished in 2016. And you can see the countries that were part of the project back then. Right now, we have 15 countries on board with more than 25,000 people using the I Fight Depression tool. It's a free-to-use self-management tool, and the idea is to provide evidence-based information and help for people with mild to moderate depression. So we're not talking about severe depression that requires other treatment, definitely. And we want to encourage people to be self-efficient to get going with these techniques. All the content is based on cognitive behavioral therapy. That's a form of psychotherapy that has been researched well in the face-to-face context. And in the form that's used in the IFAD depression tool, it builds on the idea that thoughts, feelings, and behaviors are connected, and that if we manage to change any of them, we can also affect the others. So there are 6 workshops built on techniques from CBT that might be helpful for many people with depression. To access the tool, as I said before, it's a guided intervention, so people cannot just register online. The research is very clear in that online interventions are most effective, or some say only effective, when they are guided by some kind of trained healthcare professional. That's why we decided for the IFAD depression tool to connect the login to a doctor or a therapist. That can also be like a counselor in or the therapist working in a company, or sometimes we work with universities if they have a psychotherapist employed, and they provide the IFAD depression tool. They first get a training themselves to see what it's all about, and can then offer it and invite their patients to the IFAD depression tool to then access all the information. We know that not a lot of guidance is necessary, but it's very important for patients working with such kind of interventions to have one person that they can ask for help with if there is a crisis, or if they just get stuck in the program somewhere. And also that they know someone is there and might ask them if they work with it, because a big problem of online interventions is that people start using them and then drop out early, and that is reduced a lot by guidance. But how does it look like? Here you can see the login screen on the left side. If patients log in for the first time, we ask them to complete a mood questionnaire, the PHQ-9. We ask for several symptoms of depression. This mood questionnaire is also available in the tool for patients to monitor their own symptoms. If people report a very low mood in the tool or symptoms of suicidality, they will receive a warning message and be linked to some crisis hotlines and other resources where they can access help. The structure is built like this. We have 6 core workshops, each dealing with one topic from CBT. And every workshop consists first of psychoeducation, give some information about what is depression, why are these symptoms of depression, how do they maybe affect me in my own life, and then an exercise is introduced, and an interactive mask that I will show you an example of later is offered to help people work with this in their own life. At the end, we have a summary for all the workshop, and we also added in some language versions an audio file so that people do not have to read themselves, but they can listen to, because for some people suffering from depression, that might be easier. Okay. Patients working with IFAD depression can learn several things. There is, on the one hand, information how sleep and depression can be correlated, how negative thought patterns can be changed, and also how the structuring of everyday life might help in getting on board again. So making a day plan can get some of the burden off to always make new decisions. And also we have like a rating system where people can monitor their mood, and IFAD depression can help to get a realistic picture of one's own mood during the day and see that it might not always be very low, but actually changing and maybe influenced by the things that I have been doing. This is how one of the workshops looks like. The first one is thinking, feeling, and doing, and it introduces the idea that my activities and feelings influence each other. Now we should jump to the workshop, and the exercise in the first workshop is a very classical thing from CBT, a mood diary where patients monitor what have I been doing and how was my mood after this. The idea is to get a realistic picture what influences my mood and what might improve or even worsen the mood on the long run, and also see, is my day very full? Is it very empty? Have I stopped doing all positive activities at all? a very classic CBT exercise. Workshop 5 and 6 of the IFAD depression tool tackle negative thoughts. And I think this is the most difficult to do online, because usually it is done with a therapist in an interaction to recognize one's own thought patterns and where they might be automatic negative thoughts that occur very often. The tool itself tells the patients that they can try it out, but if they need help, they are to ask their guide, and might even postpone this task if it is too difficult right now. But if they want to and maybe have already an idea on how tackling negative thoughts work, they can use this worksheet and work through several situations that might have affected them negatively. The IFAD depression tool also has emergency contacts. You can see here some examples. It's because of the different language versions, we have different emergency contacts for every country. Where to find help for Germany, we also have a link to a clinic list where people can get help, or an information hotline that we ourselves provide. But this is different for every country with their own language version. When I first started working with the IFAD depression tool, I was employed to actually do research on it, and I was myself not so sure if that could actually help patients with depression, because it sounds so like, okay, we will give them an online tool and yeah, maybe it will help. And then I started with a trial in 2016 to see if it actually is any good. And I would like to present very briefly the main results, and hope we still have the time to indulge in that. We did a trial where we compared the IFAD depression tool to an active control condition. In this case, we used relaxation training as a comparison group, and our patients were randomized to either one of these and used the IFAD depression tool or the relaxation for 6 weeks. We only included patients that were currently in treatment of some form, some were with their GPs, some had a psychotherapy or had like a psychiatrist treating them, but all of them were in some kind of treatment. So IFAD depression was an adjunct to that. And we asked them at the beginning, in the middle, and at the end of the 6 weeks periods for their mood, and also looked at a follow-up period of 3, 6, and 12 months. We started with almost 350 participants. The main outcome was a rating scale, IDSSR, that measures symptoms of depression. And we also looked at the quality of life. There's a mental and a physical component score in the SF-12. And the mental quality of life was also an important outcome for us. In this sample, we had a big amount of female people, which is usual for depression because more women are affected than men, but this is actually a bit higher than the base rate. The mean age was 42, but with a wide variety. And this is usually a negative point for the study. We had a quite high level of education, but today maybe it even fits. More than 60% of our participants completed high school and 43% had a university degree. Our participants had high internet literacy and a lot of experience with different treatments in the past, and more than half were currently taking antidepressants. So it's patients that in many cases had a longer history of depression. This is the results. The main results, it's the results of a mixed model analysis. Here you can see the treatment period. The blue lines represent the symptom scores in the IFAD depression group, and the green is the active control condition. You can see that in both cases they were sinking during the intervention period. And this is the follow-up period. Please pay attention that the axis is not according to time, so this would be much longer if we displayed it as a 12-month range. This is only 6 weeks, and this is 1 year data. In the mixed model, we could see that the difference between those two lines is statistically significant. So the IFAD depression tool decreased symptoms of depression faster than the control condition. And when looking at the different time points, we could see that the effect was most pronounced 3 months after the treatment. And it missed statistical significance by a little bit right after the intervention. A very similar picture can be found for the quality of life, where we have an increase that is larger in the intervention group than compared to the control condition. And then biggest difference after 3 months And then in the end, these points are not different statistically. So after 6 or 12 months, the groups got closer again. And what I take from this is that even starting very pessimistically, that it is actually possible to support patients with depression with such online interventions. And we were far not the only people. There have been several studies on similar programs that show medium effect sizes when compared to waitlist or treatment as usual. Our own effect sizes were a bit lower because we used an active control condition. And the feedback we received from the patients was pretty positive, even for people who had already used CBT in the past. They told us that it was a good refresher, and they really enjoyed like getting active again and using the techniques they had learned in the past again. And people who had this as a first approach either commented in the way that it was helping them to deal with their milder depression, or that it was a good preparation for a later treatment. It is possible to think of the FA depression tool as I think it's step 5 in the stepped care model, the guided self-help. So it might be a good addition to the catalog of treatments that we have. It's not, of course, not the only solution to treat depression, but can be an effective addition. So with this, I will finish, and thank you all for your attention. And if you would like to get in contact, please shoot us a message. We're happy to cooperate. And yeah, thanks for staying with us.
Thank you very much, Caroline. This is one of the good practices that we found out while we were doing our output. And I think, yeah, you have this information and a little bit more in the webpage. And yeah, I think it's really, we thought it was one of the very good tools we have, and that we can share with other universities. And I'm sure more than one, after listening this, maybe will contact with you. So we have finished these presentations, and now it's time for the questions. As I told you at the beginning, we would like to use the chat channel or tool to get all the questions you have about any of the presentations we had during this morning. So we are ready to read, or even if someone wants to directly ask any question, we can also give the option to talk and speak directly with the speakers. So I don't know if anyone wants to ask something. Okay. No questions. Okay. Here we have one. This question is to Caroline. Is there some similar tool like I Fight Depression specifically for students in higher education?
Actually, I don't know if it's an international project, but I will check it. I know there is a student project going on in Germany. I will check if it's international and maybe post the link in the chat as well. Thank you for the question.
Okay, here, Janire is very interested in new bibliography on mental health in higher education. Will any of you recommend any books? Janire, thank you for the question. I will say, yeah, it's open to anyone who wants to answer, but I will recommend you to go to the webpage of the project, because I think in all the different toolkits, we always have like a PDF with all information, and there you could find a lot of bibliography, and it's a lot of them are new, so you can find there. But Virginia, Caroline,
yes,
anyone? Yeah.
If I may, sorry, Zaskun, yes, I mean, this is what I was going to also suggest, because there are plenty of literature, both books and articles, recent and former articles. Most of them have the DOI number, the link. So it's, I think many of them are open access, so one can easily access them through the links that are included in the reference, in the citations, in the reference list. So there's huge bibliography related to these issues.
Yes, and I would like to add that I think that new things that are starting to be developed in higher education are things related to the inclusion of diversity, and it includes like all the Black students as well, and LGBTQ plus population as well. So I think that that's one of the topics that are becoming like really important in the new challenges of higher education. So I know that if you, we have also a toolkit that will be soon uploaded about inclusion in higher education, and there are like different experiences of universities that are doing like really interesting things to promote inclusion in higher education.
Okay. Okay, here we have, I don't know if I can try to translate it. It's thank you very much for the webinar. It has been very interesting. He's Sandro. He's a member of Mejorana, one organization in Navarra. And okay. Okay, I maybe thank you to all speakers, mainly because you have used language far away from biologist theories. Geraldine Akis has talked about emotional problems, personal problems, stress, and insecurity. Yeah, the mental health issues are not illness, and everything that has been talked about the students, it can be also applied to all society. So all the malestar is I don't know how to say that, but being, or I don't know, it can be a problem for mental health. So remember that the OMS says that 1 of 4 people can have problems, mental health issues along their lives. So thank you very much. More psychologists and less biologists, psychiatrics, and yeah, that they use too much medication, and that's also like drugs. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that that's like a really interesting reflection about the history of mental health, but how also we are advancing in understanding mental health and well-being with an holistic approach, and that is understand and see that mental health and well-being is the result not only of biologic conditions, but also of psychosocial factors. So I think that that's a reflection that it was graded by Sandro is really important and should be encouraged in places and webinars like this.
Maybe okay. Yeah, I had Akis. I have a question for you. while we are waiting for more questions, you say that one of the challenges in student counseling is the early identification of students at risk. I would like to know how you do that, if you work together with other professionals at university. I mean, if you work, for example, with other students, with teachers or professor or whatever, and how you do for that early identification.
Yes, thank you, Joscon, for the question. It's a huge issue. I mean, over the last year or more, we've been trying to develop a methodology in doing that, and that concerns a screening tool, a holistic screening tool, which is mostly based on the CCAPS questionnaire. The CCAPS questionnaire is the Counseling Center Assessment of Psychological Symptoms questionnaire, is the kind of golden rule that has been used in US student counseling centers across the US. It has it measures 8 factors related to mental health: depression, anxiety, family distress, academic distress, substance use, and so forth. Along with that, we try to develop and to test a screening tool, a comprehensive screening tool that would be distributed to all first-year students as they enter university, as they come to university. So the idea, and we have the support from the rectors and the deans of the university for that screening tool to be distributed to all students. And then every year have a follow-up distribution, so to be able to recognize and collaborate with academic tutors and the departments, so to identify students that are maybe at risk and collaborate with their educators to help them. So we've been testing it. We've conducted some initial research. We've have some first data, both in the general population and in clinical population, in students that have come to have visited the counseling center, and we are about now to prepare it for the next academic year to be distributed across students.
Okay, thank you, Akis. Here we have, in the chat, I think they are saying thank you. And I don't know if you have more questions. I think this is now the moment. Otherwise, we will be closing the webinar. So I think maybe it's time to say thank you really to all of you. It has been very interesting to listen the different presentations, and I'm sure that thanks to this webinar and others that we have had in the last weeks, and we will continue having around this project, we are going to link different universities with different expertises, with different tools, and it will be good for all of us. That's the main idea of the project, Embrace project, and hopefully it will be a way of improving our services to the society. So I don't know. Okay.
Yes, I would like to say thank you to everyone as well, and also invite all of you to the next webinar that will be held by the Birmingham City University. It will be also on this month, and of course we will send you the information about it. So That's all.
Okay, and of course we will send you the recording of the webinar. So thank you, and see you in another webinar soon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.